Is 12 minutes past 8.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Kiwi.
Nothing like setting the tone for our next guests in the Kiwi studio. A very talented couple of chaps. We've got David Allen and Chris Opdahl in the Kiwi studio. They are from Bungie Studios, the very, very talented people behind the Halo series. Hello to you both. Now, let me turn on your microphone. That's very unprofessional of me. G'day, guys.
How's it going?
Welcome to New Zealand.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you. Now, Chris, can you tell me what you do? What's your part in the Halo series?
I'm the lead campaign designer for Halo Reach. I oversaw the development of the missions, worked with the AI engineers and the character artists to build all the characters in the game.
And David?
I'm the multiplayer producer for Halo Reach. Worked with a multiplayer team doing competitive multiplayer, firefight, and the player investment system.
Excellent. Tell us about Halo Reach and where it fits into the whole kind of Halo series of things. I know that might be quite difficult because it gets quite complex the deeper you go into it. But in sort of in general, if people are sort of unfamiliar or maybe just a little bit familiar with the Halo series, where does it fit in?
So Halo Reach is a prequel to Halo Combat Evolved. It's the moments pretty much leading right up into Halo Combat Evolved.
When did Combat Evolved come out?
2001.
2001.
Okay.
I think and depending on what country you're in.
Was
the
that
United States.
Was that the first one?
That's
Correct.
the first one.
Halo 1, yeah.
And that came out on, what was that? Was that the
Xbox One.
Xbox
Yes.
One, yeah.
Yeah.
And where is it in relation to, say, like Halo 3, which was the last biggie?
So the actual events between Halo 1, 2, and 3, and including ODST, was actually a very short timeline, just only several months, as far as like the chronology of the universe goes.
Okay. Who decides on the whole overall story? Where does that come from?
So Marcus Leto is the creative director of for Halo Reach,
Yeah.
and he did a lot of that early work, and he worked with the team of writers to actually create the characters in the world and set all that up.
So has a lot of this been decided a few years ago, and you're just sort of following through?
Yeah,
on
the high-level
those now?
story of Reach was actually already established in the Halo fiction before we started working on the game.
Okay.
And we've got a team of writers who kind of oversee all of that.
Yeah.
And actually, even while Halo 3 was being finished, the creative core had moved off of Halo 3 and on to Halo Reach probably a month before Halo 3 was done.
Yeah. And so Halo Reach takes us really to the earliest part of the Halo sort of history or future.
I think Halo Wars actually was pre-Reach.
Right.
It was far back, but that was also made by a different studio, Ensemble
This
Studios.
is the earliest we've ever gone.
That was
gone.
a strategy game as opposed to a first-person
Correct.
shooter.
Yes.
Yeah. So you guys are specialised really mainly in the first-person shooting genre.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is what? Yep.
Oh, pre-Halo, they worked on a series called Myth, which
Right.
was a real-time strategy game.
Okay.
Yeah, Bungie has.
One thing I guess you can get from even just from the music that we just heard in the intro to this piece is there's a lot of emotion in this series.
Yes.
And people don't I guess put games and high emotion into the same box. Is that a big struggle to create emotion in games? I mean, how is it hard to do?
I think some of the emotions are easier to do. I think horror games can do fear really well. Action games can do action, can do sort of edge your seat moments really well. Music goes a long way towards that, and Marty O'Donnell is a master at sort of creating emotional themes. Reach is an attempt to go a little darker, a little more tragic on the story of the planet and what the player has to do and such. Because
I guess players of any of the later or earlier games, but later in the chronologically of things, would know that there were some pretty terrible things that went on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
This is definitely the fall of the planet.
But we don't know what happened, though, do we? Well, you guys know, but we don't.
Correct.
What? Tell us about the level of secrecy working in Bungie. I mean, is it?
We actually have In the studio, there's the front door's locked, and then there's a security guard, and then there's a door past him that's also locked.
Golly gosh.
To get into the main
It's not
development space.
one of those doors with a big wheel on it. With a
Yeah, pretty much. An airlock. We also have signs. During World War II, the Navy, the U.S. Navy had signs with it's like a guy drowning, and you see him, he's just about to fall beneath the water, and it was like loose lips sink ships.
Yeah.
And we took that poster, and it's loose tweets sink ships and stuff like that. So Bungie internally, we take it very seriously for no one that works there to leak anything or to tell their friends what we're working on and such.
Yeah. Is it an intensive atmosphere? I mean, is it is everyone working really, really hard and long hours?
Towards the end of the game, people tend to work long hours just because they want to get in as much stuff as they can imagine into the game. In general, it's actually a really fun atmosphere. Yeah. Like, everybody really enjoys making games and really cares about the games. So you get guys bouncing ideas off of each other and like showing each other the cool stuff they're working on. It's a whole lot of fun, I think. Do
you get that overall perspective of what's going on? Because I can imagine there's an army of people there, and they're each focused on a very specific thing.
I think we do in our roles. One of my big responsibilities is to make sure that the other people in the studio actually have that same level of bird's eye view, because it's easy for them to get caught up in making this one little moment in the game, and the more of a broad picture they can have, the more excited they get for the game, as well as it influences how they do what they're doing.
Yeah, we also have pretty regular play tests. Yep. So for the multiplayer team, pretty much every day we take an hour out of the day and have people come up and just play the game.
Mm-hmm. And David, you were responsible, obviously, for getting the multiplayer beta out.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
What did you learn from that? Because that came out, three
came
months?
out in May, I think.
Yeah, and so that enabled people all around the world to have their first kind of look at Halo Reach, and also test out some of the new weaponry.
Yeah, we actually learned a ton from it. It was the first chance. One of the big additions to Reach is we have armor abilities now, where you can either be invincible for a little while, or run fast, or use a jetpack, stuff like that we've never had before. So we got to really see that in action at a large scale.
Yep.
We also got to see all the new weapons and new maps and how people played them. So we got a lot of feedback from that we made little tweaks to the game with. And our engineers were also collecting data as people were playing to kind of update the internet code and make sure that people's connections were good, and playing multiplayer against people all over the world was going to be a good experience.
What about? Yeah, let's talk about some of that weaponry. Are we going to be seeing fresh weapons that people haven't encountered at all ever before?
Absolutely.
And where do those ideas come from? I mean, how do you dream up new types of new ways of blowing people up?
We have a couple of designers. We call them sandbox designers. They own a lot of the weapons, and they work with the really talented 3D artists who build the objects and such. And usually that group together, as well as probably the effects artists, they all just kind of powwow. They start talking about stuff, and it could be the look of a weapon, or the explosion that they're thinking about, or the gameplay functionality. Like Halo 3, a good example was the Spartan laser, which was the fuse weapon.
Yeah.
It's a weapon that you actually hold the trigger down, and after some number of time, it'll shoot.
Right.
Creates a very different dynamic of, you're really tense when you pull the trigger down. You're trying to wait for that fuse to end so you can actually shoot the guy, which is different than like a sniper rifle where you pull the trigger and it shoots immediately, or an assault rifle where it's fuse weapons.
So none of these weapons are going to feel completely out of place to anyone who's familiar with the Halo franchise at the same time. They'll still feel like, oh, okay, this is part of a lineage of...
Yeah, they definitely feel like Halo.
Yeah.
The biggest new one is probably the target locator, which is like an artillery strike weapon. You paint a target, and then off screen they'll shoot in a bunch of artillery shells. So that's a very new feel.
Just annihilates everything.
Yeah. Wired magazine has recently done a wee article called "Ode to the BFG," which is the big friggin' gun, and looked at big guns down through history, going right back to 1993, where it was Doom and it was the BFG 9000.
Yep.
Right through to Armed and Dangerous in 2003 with the Land Shark gun, Fallout 3 with the experimental Merv. They've said in Halo Reach it will be the Type 52 guided munitions launcher explosive.
I believe. Was that the one you were just talking
Must
about?
be,
Is that the same one?
Yeah, I believe so.
Which it sounds insane.
We also internally there's a mission where you have to go in, and the Covenant have placed a couple of large artillery weapons that you have to go destroy, and those internally we call them the BFGs.
I just wonder, because it says here, spews 4 bolts of doom per trigger squeeze.
No, that's the.
Is it something else?
This is the Covenant, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ah, right.
It's we refer to it internally as the plasma launcher.
Okay.
But you hold down the trigger and it'll shoot 4 grenades that actually track vehicles or bipeds. So it'll chase them around corners and.
Yeah.
I just wanted to work at Bungie. Do you have to have an element of never growing up? You know,
Absolutely.
to always be the big kid.
Yes.
I think there's a little bit of that.
I don't think anybody at Bungie has ever really grown up.
Yeah. What do your family say when you tell them what you do?
They usually laugh and they kind of get a funny smile on their face and just.
I think my dad's just glad that all that time I spent playing games as a kid is paying off.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, one thing I do want to know also about, because you deal with AI, don't you? Artificial intelligence. When you're designing AI within a game, is it set originally at a maximum level, like the computer knows exactly what you're doing and can track you, or and then you have to work it down and reduce the AI, or does it start at the opposite end?
Yeah, we actually used the AI from Halo 3, and one of the things we tried to do was strip out all of the ways that the AI actually intentionally miss you or don't know where you are, and make them hyper-lethal, hyper-aware. Because once you get to that level, and then you can go to the bottom level of they never see you, they never know you are, you know you can do the two extremes, and then you find that sweet spot in the middle that feels good.
Yeah. What I also want to know is how much time on the game do you really need before you get really proficient at it, before you can actually go to a hard or an expert level? I mean, can it be learned, or does it come naturally?
It can definitely be learned. I know just playing in the multiplayer playtests over the course of the project, I went from being not the best in the studio, we'll say, to being okay. And just from spending that time playing the game and getting used to the controls and the weapons and the rhythm that you want to fire, stuff like that.
And what's the strategy for anyone who walks into a multiplayer and just looks at it and goes, "This is chaos," and cannot make any sense of what is going on?
Definitely spending a little bit of time with it, and then it depends on the game you're playing. We have some simpler games like Slayer that's basically shoot the other guys, and then we have more complicated games like Invasion that have multiple tiers of objectives. And starting with something a little simpler is probably easier just to grasp what's happening.
This is Bungie's final go at the Halo franchise. Goodness knows why you're going to hand it off to anyone else. How does it make you feel that you're putting this one to rest?
It's a little bittersweet. I mean, it's exciting to have worked on something for 3 years and get a chance to show it to people and get their reactions to it. But at the same token, like, I love Halo and I loved working on Halo 3 and then Halo Reach, and to not work on that again is in some level sad.
Yeah, like Chris said, I was actually saying yesterday, it's really exciting for people to finally get to play it because we've been working on it so long. But moving on from the franchise it's a little sad.
I was looking for tears. I was hoping you guys were going to squeeze out something. Yeah. Well, it's as I say, it's looking absolutely fabulous, and I can't wait to give it a bash next month.
Yep.
September 14th.
Yes,
correct.
14th.
Is the worldwide release. Chris and David, thanks very much for coming on the show and telling us about Halo Reach.